you dirty potters. How are you today? Today we are starting part 2 of your throwing with consistency lessons. Now in part 1 of throwing with consistency, we talked about weighing your clay body before you throw anything. Weighing your clay body so that you make sure you have a consistent shape is probably one of the best ways to get your body used to the shape that you're throwing with the amount of clay that you will be throwing it with. So weighing your clay is kind of a gimme. But in today's episode, we're going to talk about the tools of consistency. You like that? You like how I'm weighing my clay as I'm talking to you? Almost like a callback to the previous episode, which you should have watched. And if you had not watched, you might want to do that now. But in order to make that job a little bit easier, we're going to talk about 3 primary tools that you can use for consistency right now. And honestly, they're a little bit easier than weighing your clay body, which is wild because that's already stupid easy. The first tool we're going to talk about are bats. Bats are a tool specifically used by potters to make the job of taking their work off of the wheel. Bats come in different shapes, they come in different colors, they come in different sizes. I don't have too many of them because I'm not much of a productionist, but I have about 4 of these, so I can throw about 4 shapes consistently if I weigh my clay out, and I really wanted to make a small batch of something over and over again. The high majority of bats are also fit to most wheels. They have one measurement here, these little holes right here at the end, and they also have a secondary measurement right here. The high majority of bats in the world have these 2 measurements. And the first time you buy a bat, they will also come with these. These are bat pins. They also come with something called bat wings, which I don't really use because my wheel head doesn't come off, and that's a problem for later. You simply put these bat pins inside of your wheel holes, like this. You line up whatever size your wheel is, so for me it's these 2 angles right here. One goes here, the other one goes here, and this is now attached to my wheel. The awesome thing is, now whatever I throw on here is going to come off just as I threw it when I stopped touching it. I don't have to mess with it, touch it, risk morphing it, worry about bumping it whatsoever. After I'm done throwing the piece, I simply stop my wheel, take it off just like this, and it comes off on its own little plateau. Potter tip! The high majority of bats are not made off of this super slick, completely sealed material. This is made out of a certain type of porous plastic. I mean, technically speaking, all plastic is porous to some extent, like technically, scientifically speaking, but this stuff is made out of a certain plastic that helps it dry a little bit more evenly. I'm willing to bet the high majority of you already know about this tool. It's extremely easy to use. I was in fact not trained with this tool. I was taught to take my piece directly off of the wheel head. But if you're not using this, you're taking it off the wheel head by itself and you're kind of schmooving it along to a wooden piece or some other plateau. This essentially gives you a plateau to throw with. You don't have to mess with it at all. All those times you accidentally bumped a piece when taking it off, they no longer exist. The second piece of consistency equipment is called a throwing gauge. Now this does look like an abacus had relations with a Windows PC old piece of equipment and made this monster. The way it works is that it has a height measurement and it has a width measurement, both of which you can interchange and you can also set yourself. There's screws on the back that you can loosen, kind of like your bat pins, and you can put it up and down, and there's also some here that you can go back and forth. Doesn't matter which one you want to do, you can do whichever one you want. I'm going to stop doing that because it looks like chopsticks at this point. So let's say you wanted to throw something this high, and you wanted to make sure that it was relatively triangular. You would place your throwing gauge next to your wheel. After you're done placing its measurements, you would decide exactly where you want your pot to end up, and you would start throwing. After you're done throwing your piece, you would get your gauge, make sure the measurements match up, and boom! There you go. A little potter tip about this tool is at the end of the gauge, the measurements, can be retracted as you wish, so that way they don't touch your pottery. And even if they do, they're made out of this weird kind of paper/felt material to where they don't really leave any markings on your tool. So you can technically leave it here all you want, throw, and make sure the measurements are right on as you keep throwing and throwing and throwing. But generally speaking, what most people do is they throw a form, they put it back, they check it, just like you would with calipers, and then they continue throwing over and over again. But I have seen plenty of people just leave this here to make sure that their shape is consistent with their height and their width. And from that point on, it's super easy to throw the same exact shape. You already weighed out your clay, and now you just have to follow the measurements that you have on the gauge. Measure it one more time. And there we go. And just to show you, because a lot of you don't believe it until you see it, you little conspiracy theorists, boom, same size. The last and final tool we're going to talk about for throwing with consistency are calipers. Now, these are a fairly well-known tool. They are most known for measuring the tops of lidded pieces and lidded jars and the lids themselves. It's very easy. They work similar to the throwing gauge I just showed you, in that you can measure the outside of something, or rather the inside of something to the outside, by measuring it, right? And you turn this little knob right here, and it holds that measurement, based on how tight, of course, you put it. This here can measure the outside of something. Let's say you have a nice lid. Let's pretend this is a lid right here. With this side, you would then measure the width of that lid. You would remember, okay, I need to make my lid, or lids if I'm throwing multiple things, to this measurement. You would turn the knob and it would keep that measurement for you. You wouldn't have to go back and measure with a ruler every time. The same thing would happen for the inside of something. If this was a vessel and the inside was only yay big, you would then measure the inside of it like this, and you would know, okay, the inside lip of my vessel is this big. I'm gonna keep that measurement, and I'm gonna make about 5 of these shapes. And that's how this works. Potter tip. This tool technically has ratio measurements on it, and you can see them right there. So if you are following my instructions per the last video of telling you to write it down, you can write down exactly what ratio or measurement this was when you decided to throw it. That way you have this exact number in the books for next time you want to throw that shape. Once you settle on a shape, of course. A lot of people ignore these numbers. They're important though. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. I hope you liked episode number 2. This was more to make sure that you know these tools exist. I feel like at least one of these 3 tools, someone was like, I didn't know that was a thing. That way I can consistently throw my stuff from now on. Like me, the first 3 years of my life, I was just taking pots straight off the wheel like this. I didn't even know bats were a thing. And then once I got to plates, my teacher was like, you know, plates exist. You don't have to do that. But now, I'm relatively comfortable with this, so I only have maybe 4 bats in my possession. I don't have a slew like a lot of other potters. But many other potters who make production work specifically will just have tons and tons and tons of these. And there's a bunch of different types of all the tools that I've shown you today in this video. I'm going to leave a lot of links down below to a couple of different pottery shops where you can check out, or you can go ahead and buy these tools. I don't have a discount code. I deeply apologize. If I did, I'd give it to you because you deserve it. You're so special. But hopefully this helped you in your art journey, and I also hope that if you have a commission at the moment, this also helped you, because you can throw with very good accuracy. Because you can now throw with extreme accuracy now that you just weigh your clay and have a couple tools. Remember to click all the YouTube buttons, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Thank you for your patronage.
Why do I keep using recycled clay for videos? It makes me look like the cup's wobbly. I could use nice pristine clay and make myself look like an expert 24/7, but no. No.